so let's talk about Man of Steel,
Mm-hmm.
the big release that came out last weekend. Jason, you and I both saw it.
Yep.
I don't know. What do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that, and I kind of shared a quick little ditty on our Twitter feed. I really liked it. I thought the third act was sketchy at times, and the main reason for that is there were some leaps of logic, and not even comic book logic, just sort of real world logic that kind of had me scratching my head a little bit. But I was really surprised on how well I enjoyed it. And I've said this before, even last week, that I'm not a big fan of the Superman franchise. But this is by far my favorite Superman movie. I mean, this has me interested to see what direction they'll take the Superman character. I just never really connected necessarily with the character that I have other sort of characters in the DC universe even. But I thought, Henry Cavill, it was a fantastic choice. Again, sort of like I said before, I was really sort of weary of, like, really they chose him for the role, and then I mean, opening credit sequence, I'm like, okay, this is, well, not necessarily, well, I'm trying to think of exactly how it starts. Do you see him right at the beginning?
Yeah.
Or is it all the early
you
Krypton?
do, but you don't. Well, the prologue is all early Krypton stuff.
Which is cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah. I liked it as well. I liked it quite a bit. It's definitely the best summer movie I've seen this summer. The best summer blockbuster
Like,
I've seen
tentpole.
this year.
Yeah.
I thought the acting for Superman was really good. I thought the writing was a little weak. I mean, Superman is kind of like it's like an ideal or a template. Like, you're supposed to be able to project your own self onto Superman. He didn't feel like he had much of like a personality, really. And I think the problem was, and this is a minor spoiler, we never really see him as anything other than Superman.
Right.
Like, we never see him as the alter ego. And I think that's something that
The next movie, if they do one, I think would obviously have to tackle.
Like, how does he hide in plain sight? I think that's something that Christopher Reeve did a great job of playing like two characters of like, I'm Superman and I'm totally different, and I'm this other guy who's bumbling and weird and awkward. We never saw that side of him.
I thought it was an interesting way of taking us to that character, though.
Yeah.
Just like show us like the very like, because you learn that Superman's pretty much trying to hide from the world. Like, he's just anticipating the moment in his life where everyone just figures out what he is, and that's what this movie's all about.
Yeah,
which I thought was interesting to sort of hold back, sort of the newspaper, fumbling.
Yeah,
like, oh, where are my glasses? When I really don't. Although in this day and age, wearing fake, eyewear is going to be amazing. Like, he's going to fit right in. He'll just be like a hipster.
Yeah.
It'd be great. I can't wait for that.
I mean, my only
Although
problem,
that might not be a trend by the time the next movie comes out.
Yeah, I mean, my only problem with it was
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it was like I was learning sort of how other people, how he react. I don't know. It's hard to describe. But at the end of the movie, I was like,
he's not doing a very good job at hiding himself.
Yeah. Or it's just like, I know he likes his mom a lot, and I know he likes this woman a lot, this Lois Lane character. I know he wants to save the world. I'm not 100% sure I know why.
Yeah.
I
would agree with that.
That's my only problem with it. Otherwise, I really liked it. I loved how they sort of retconned some of why Krypton was destroyed and how that worked. I loved what's the actor's name? Played Zod. Michael something?
Shannon.
Michael Shannon.
Yeah.
Every actor needs to be Michael Shannon. That guy is amazing. Yeah. He can do literally anything. I'm totally convinced. He was amazing as Zod.
Right. I would agree.
And what I loved about the movie, Superman could not have solved the plot by himself.
Yeah.
He could not have done it all by himself. He needed other people to help him, which I think is something that's sorely lacking in a lot of superhero movies lately. I was a little annoyed. I mean, the wanton destruction, we're kind of expecting it now. This movie took it way further than a lot of other films.
And that was one of my main issues. And this isn't really spoiling anything because you're expecting destruction. If you've seen the Avengers, okay, so imagine the Avengers. Take that and multiply it by like 20.
Yeah.
Like, that's the amount of destruction that happens in Metropolis. But my big problem was, and at one point I just started getting verbal about it, was that, okay, these buildings are, toppling over, they're falling down. We've seen a 9/11. We've lived 9/11. We know what that looks like. We know what, ashes and fire and buildings and stuff. You don't have perfect hair. like this part of my body, like where all my clothes are dirty, but my face looks great. No, like you can't tell who people are. We're smart enough as a society, even as moviegoers, that we can decipher who's who on screen. Like, if you're going to go all the way, you're going to blow up buildings, you're going to have them topple as people run away from them. We've seen that. Show us that. Like, I know it's not, especially this movie. This movie, I thought, took the violence and sort of the craziness a little, maybe too far for what I expect in a Superman movie. I was just kind of annoyed by that.
Yeah, my main problem with it is, in this next Superman movie, they'll never mention it.
Yeah.
Metropolis was not destroyed.
Yeah, right.
No. Who cares about that? No, it will not affect the world at all.
Billions of dollars it took to rebuild it in an instant.
That's what bothers me about it. It's like, if the next movie was all about, we got to rebuild Metropolis, like Superman is using his superpowers as a construction worker because all of our buildings were destroyed.
Well, if you've seen any Hardee's commercials, Superman's helping out.
That's what bothers. That's what always bothers me about it. We're not going to see like how it affects the world that he's living in.
Right.
That bugged me.
It was excessive. I mean, I just felt excessive. And I will say that the pacing of the movie is a little intense, even for someone like myself that's quite familiar with the character. I mean, I will say that I am knowledgeable of the Superman universe. I just don't prefer it. My wife sort of was like, it was a little much, because it's just like one thing after another, which was kind of nice, because it was just kind of like, oh, slow scene. Bam, you're back into it. It was kind of nice at times. But the third act was just like start to finish, just action, Yeah. And I know a lot of people want that, but I do know that there's about 30 to 40 minutes of the movie that got cut out.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see that in the future. I'd like to sort of see how that works out.
I thought also that Russell Crowe was great, like really great, like the best possible choice for Superman's dad.
Yep.
And I loved how I thought he was going to be like Marlon Brando and just show up.
Yeah.
First scene and then like a disembodied voice. He was in almost the entire film.
Yeah. He was in at least a solid hour of action.
And within the world, it made sense why he was there.
Sure.
It wasn't just like, oh, I'm having a memory of my dad.
I need to go talk to my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, it made sense.
He was a viable character. Even when Superman wasn't around. Like he was still doing stuff in the sort of current setting, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And they did quite a bit with that sort of setting, with the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, and I mean, in the original appearance of Zod in Superman 2, he was this kind of like, I'm mad because I got locked up and blah, blah, blah. We never know why. Yeah. This one, they make it very explicit why he was locked up, what he's after. The motivations for the villain were very strong. Yeah. And while I didn't agree that he should do what he was doing, I understood why he was so driven and what his purpose was. And I don't know if this version of Krypton ever existed in the comics beforehand, but I thought it was a really good look at not a topical issue, because that's not something we're dealing with now. It's all about like genetic modification and stuff like that. But it seems like something that in 10, 15, 20 years, when we are really dealing with that issue, this will feel like, oh, wow, they really sort of were looking forward on that. So,
yeah, like I said, I liked it. I would probably need to revisit it, because like with the Avengers, I really liked it the first time I watched it. Then I watched it a second time and I was kind of like, is that so good?
Yeah.
Like, it's not as great as I remember it. They are two completely different movies, obviously, and I have a feeling that I will like this one slightly less for different reasons, mostly because of the pacing. Like, it's just, the pacing is so intense at times.
I imagine since it's a Zack Snyder movie, I mean, Watchmen got all those scenes put back in for a massive 5-hour cut, which is actually kind of good.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if this movie has a similar treatment.
And I will say the ending was unexpected, because I thought they were going, like, I was like, it would be really like a ballsy move for them to go this direction, and they went there. But I still wasn't happy with it. And in the future, when we get into like spoil theater or something, we can talk about that. But I think the general viewing public will, enjoy this movie. Yeah. For what it's worth. I mean, obviously the last, Superman Returns was just a big this movie compared to that one was a big trip. Like just a big hit or miss. This one, I thought they did a lot of things right. I will say the Lois Lane character is still pretty hollow for me.
Yeah.
For different reasons than in the past.
Yeah. I think, they made her, I thought they gave, she has the job as a journalist. It's not just on paper that she's a journalist. She actually shows some ability to be a journalist, but like Superman, it's like I don't understand. I didn't learn much about why she cares about the things she cares about.
Exactly. Well, and it's like I've done some work with the military before. There's no way ever she would get this close to anything as easy as she did. Plus, the other thing with the military is that I know the military is trained to sort of do, minimal collateral damage, and they can sort of minimize it to a very specific point. But with all the stuff that was happening in certain scenes, again, we've seen, fertilizer plants blow up, destroy like 2-3 mile radiuses.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Like if you're going to do Metropolis the way you did Metropolis, Smallville or whatever, could have been the same way. It's just kind of like, And then the fact that the military was very like, we have nukes, but the fact that they didn't even think about like pushing the button and just blowing everything up.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't even brought up.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they were trying to use the conventional weapons much against the bad guys.
I can solve this problem. At least give it a shot.
Or at least tell us why you can't do that.
Exactly.
Because we're thinking that.
Right.
So, anyways.
But for the most part, worth seeing.
I enjoyed it. A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.